So relief. All right. Emotional self-development is really about restoring the right order and relationship between these brains. Okay? So that the neocortex is driving the limbic and so forth and so on. And so that your intellect does not get pressed into the service of these lower things. Because this is where all that emotional and psychological shit is happening. You see? You're trapped here. And you got to reverse it. Somebody had to come. Yes? And then Dayal saw?
Question.
Yes, beloved.
Diet.
Diet?
Diet has a play on that, doesn't it?
Yes, diet has some role. But then again, diet introduces a lot of chemical things. So let me just mention something to you here. One of the things, for instance, have you noticed all these children with these big old feet and, you know what I mean? I mean, like kids, they 9 years old and they wear a size 16 shoe, and girls at 9 got breasts way out here, and hormones, right? Well, when you eat, for instance, meat is farmed. Those farmers inject that meat with hormones, right, to accelerate the growth, right? So when you bite down into it and give your baby some of it, right, then those hormones go where? And it produces the same kind of phenomena, doesn't it? They get big and fat and ready for slaughter. So food can definitely upset the natural balance of hormones in the body. And in that sense, it can influence it. Yeah. But that again is the failure of intellect, right? Because intellect is in the service of the palate. When intellect is in the service of the palate, where is it at? Here, isn't it? Because isn't that what the reptilian complex is about? What I like, what I like to eat, what I like to wear, and your whole life is simply a reflection of your pursuit of what you like. At no time are you moving toward anything that you don't like. That's what characterized the behavior associated with being locked into the R complex, is that your life is strictly about attraction and aversion. Strictly. It's about maintaining comfort, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. You don't never want to be moved outside of your comfort zone. You're reptilian. You're like, and you bring your intellect into service, and you figure out all kinds of ways where you don't have to work. Shit. That's that figured out. You know what I mean? That's a lick. And it's ingenious. Right? Or I'm not gonna fatigue myself. There's some people who have never been tired. Ain't no way they gonna sweat. You know what I mean? No sweat. No sweat. They perfect a life of no sweat. Ingenious. They have put their intellect and all of this other stuff, these higher orders, into the service of fulfilling their reptilian drives, so forth and so on. Dayal Saab, you had something to say.
Yes, if you straighten out or correct me if I'm wrong, I thought the development of our complex neo was a developmental, and maybe the cerebral and neo exists as a potential, but it's dependent upon our progressing from lower to higher levels, meaning that the R complex, when one's attention is focused there, is, as an adult, is essentially going to experience a studied kind of growth.
Yes.
So one does build on the
Oh
other.
yeah, they are developmental. I only stack them like that to show how the neocortex is closer to that overall development that nature has intended. Because if you got a neocortex, nature has clearly expressed her wish.
We have it.
You have it. It is not developed. It's not cultivated. And that's where we ultimately have to take education, right? Because eventually in education, we're going to have to learn how to develop the heart in order to activate. Now, maybe we should say a little bit something about that. Would that be all right? Okay. Now, and let me just suggest, this is just a very rough outline here. Maybe this will help a little bit. Let's say 0 to 1, and let's call that stage 1. This is where the R complex is developed. Stage 2, and let's say that this is ages 1 to 4. This is where the limbic, and I'm just putting this up arbitrarily, I can tighten it up, but I'm not going to fret with all of that, just so you get the overall picture here. And then let's say these are the developmental stages. Okay, and these are the ages. Now let's say from 4 to 7, stage 3, they start developing the limbics, the neocortex, but first they start with the right hemisphere. That begins to open up. Okay? Then let's say from 7 to 11, stage 4, the left hemisphere starts. And then let's say from 11 to about 15 or so, adolescent, mid-adolescence, the cerebellum, maybe, that's always questionable, and the prefrontal lobes. Now, of course, all of this is neocortex development, okay? Is this helping a little bit, Dr. All right, now here's what happens. Now this is really interesting. There's a principle. Now remember, nature's giving us all of this good stuff, right? They're giving us all of this good stuff. But if you don't use it, you what?
Lose it.
Right. And this happens neurologically, automatically, like a clock. Now, I mentioned to you at the top of our discussion that at birth, there's 100 billion cells, neurons, rather, connections, right? Circuits set up. The infant is wired at birth for the whole realm of possibilities throughout the entire scope of the brain. You're wired. The circuits are put into place. That's what all of this business with the axons and dendrites and, synapse and all of that, you all know about all that stuff. All that circuitry is in place at birth with the potential. If you throw in the cerebellum, you're looking from 100 billion to 1 trillion. Neurons, circuits are in place. You're wired to become divine. All the way up. Okay? The wiring is in place. Now, there is a principle in evolution that that this whole notion about if you don't use it, you lose it, is articulated in the form of what we call a model, the model imperative. And of course, nurture of environment. What you'll find out is that in order for these circuits that are already wired in the brain, all the way through it, because the heart have done that. That's the process that the heart is driving. The heart brain is wiring the entire body mind. The heart system provides life for the entire body mind. The heart governs the entire body mind. You follow me? It has created it. It is the center of it. That's why they say your heart is the center, isn't it? Now it has set it up, right? But now what has to occur, and you can imagine if you wired this whole building, right? You got to throw a switch. Otherwise, the circuits are not going to fire, right? There must be some stimuli. It must be started. You see my point? Just like that heartbeat starts with an electrical, right? Now, really, today, folks, they really don't know how the heartbeat starts. In neurocardiology, they still haven't figured it out. Now, there's a theory of the origin of the heart because we don't know. You see? We don't know. In fact, if you take a cell, a heart cell, and you put it under a microscope, for a while, it will persist in the heart rate. You see? That beating. You all know what I'm talking about? Heart rate, right? Just boom, boom, boom. That rhythm, that heart rhythm, will still be reflected. You will see it pulsating in perfect synchronicity with that prior heart rhythm. But after a while, it'll start fibrillating. It'll lose its rhythm. You know what I mean? It'll start just quivering. Take another piece of heart, another heart cell, put it in the same proximity, don't even have to touch it, and it will instantly start beating in rhythm. Which means that you have to understand something, folks, about the super implicate order and beyond, that those are non-local. Non-local, and they're outside of time and space. Although they create phenomena in time and space. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that gets reflected. So now what is happening here is that this heart of ours has set up all this wiring, but it has to get stimulated. You follow me? And that stimuli must be provided to the infant, either through parenting. It must be modeled. That's the model imperative. You must trigger it in your child, right? And it must be nurtured by the environment. Now here's what happens. If by the age of 11, of those 100 billion to a trillion neuron and circuits that were created, if they haven't been activated, they get wiped out by nature. And that's the end of the story. You follow me? All that will remain in your neural pattern will be those parts of that circuitry that were stimulated during your developmental stages. Are you with me?
Wow.
All right? For instance, you have been wired to be compassionate, wired for tolerance, wired for patience, wired for all of those spiritual qualities. But if in your nurturing and developmental stages there was no stimulus provided to you and no compassion was modeled to you, you're just a hot-ass old man. And you trapped unless a miracle happens. You see? Yes, Diane.
Then what you may be implying is that, you know, our relationship after is crucial. The ideal relationship more or less mimics the heart.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. What I'm saying is that human relationships, that whole human environment, is critical in the stimulating and the firing up of these circuits and possibilities that are built already into your brain nervous system. All of that. And they better get there by the age of 11. I was telling Charles, my son, I bought him a basketball hoop. I said, we got to get that damn thing up. Man, you go home, put it up, because my grandson ain't got no moves. And he's 10 and he only got a year left, so I got to get him some moves. Otherwise, There ain't gonna be no neural circuits left. So now, are you with me? Now, what actually happened is that this process of washing out unused circuitry occurs at other earlier stages. But the final dissolution, the grand pralaya, as the mystic called it, occurs at 11. And it washes out all of those trillion neurons and connections that did not get activated, or what we call myelination. Okay? Myelin is a chemical that is actually generated, that goes through the whole nervous system, and it insulates, it picks up those circuits that have been used, activated, right? And it coats them, so that when the great flood comes, they don't get washed out. They remain. And those circuits that were myelinated, right, survive, and that becomes your pattern. When I talk about the fact that you've been patterned, you've been conditioned, that's what's left over after the great flood of chemicals that washes out and destroys and all of those things. Because again, nature is not going to waste anything at all. So your brain actually loses weight. You see my point? It's a strange thing. Strange. Okay, you got hands up. That's good. All right, let's start with Parvakaji, then Anaraji, and then Keisha, and then Parvakaji. You all remember your order call. I haven't gotten up to the middle course. Okay, go.
It seems to me, based on what you're saying, that there's some real serious implications here for the whole educational
Major
process,
implication.
because the current approach does not deal with this
At all.
and not at all.
Not at all.
And you're still getting a lot of failure, and
You're-
it's the whole thing is just.
In fact, I might go to England in October and do a whole workshop on emotional self-management and the development of the intelligence of the heart and its implications in education. Yeah, its implication in education, its implications in parenting, because the first principal source of stimuli for the developing infant is the mother, right? It's the mother. Now, I was telling you before we went off on a tangent that they still don't know the origin of the heartbeat. One of the theories about the origin of the heartbeat is that when that fetus is in the mother's womb, in utero, that electrical spark from the heart ignites it. Because the baby and the mother heartbeat in synchronicity, right? And in fact, as the baby begins to develop, the baby actually starts responding physically. It moves. There are certain muscles that move every time the mother heartbeat. Every time the mother speaks, there's a muscular response by the fetus and so forth and so on. It is interesting because now we get into the interesting stuff, right? In the heart, I told you before that the heart was reclassified as a part of the endocrine system because it generates hormones. Well, one of the hormones that the heart generates is, I'm just going to erase some of this here. One of the hormones that it generates is called oxytocin. Familiar with anybody? Yes. It's the love hormone, right? It produces bonding. It is what makes the mother milk flow through to the breast, to the child, and so forth. But it is also the same hormone that generates any kind of bonding. It actually gives you the emotional ability to bond, right? It is the same hormone that bonds the child later to family. and brothers and siblings. You see, that bonds family to community, that bonds a man to a woman, right? And if your heart hasn't produced that, abundance is going to happen, right? I mean, it's an amazing thing when you really begin to look at it. Now, what that means, for instance, this bonding requires close proximity of the mother and the child, particularly throughout the developmental stages. That's the fallacy of daycare. When you put your child in daycare, you have moved them into an environment full of all kinds of negative stimuli that's going to screw your kid up. Trust me, right? In fact, it'll screw the mother up too. One of the interesting things in postpartum psychosis or syndrome, what they observe is that when an infant is born, you need to put that child up on that mother's chest instantly and let them heartbeats get, you know what I mean? So that she can bond. You got to let the oxytocin do its thing. If you interrupt that bonding, then, if the baby is sick or for some other reason you got to take them away, you break the bonding. And the mother can't feel no love for the child. Because her process of bonding was artificially interrupted. So this kind of medical technology that has co-opted childbearing is another problem. So you got daycare, and you got the very system of medical technology that has co-opted the childbearing process. That's a problem, because you're separating the mother and child, and you're breaking down the chemistry, literally. And you're going to get that. You follow me? It's really interesting. They studied, of course, 50, 60 years ago in Africa, before it got modern and all that, this childbearing process had not really been co-opted by medical technology because they didn't have no damn money. You follow me? And so the process was preserved. And it's very interesting. You could observe African women on the continent. They would wrap their babies in these scarves, you see them? Yeah. Right? No diapers. They could feel when the baby was going to shit. They could feel when the baby was going to piss before they pissed. And would take them in the bush and let them do their thing. Bond. It makes you intuitive, telepathic. You follow me? You got me? Now, not only must that child be stimulated within close proximity to the first teacher, which is mother, but the child lives even in your unconscious behavior. In fact, Jung said that the child grows in the mother's unconscious. Because even though you're not even conscious of it, the child is resonating. So your negative thoughts that you don't even articulate impacts the child. It passes through the bonding connection. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
So you begin to see now that you get a lot of children that is coming to the school system, right? They're not bonded with nothing. You follow me? In fact, they are so emotionally messed up and underdeveloped, they are not even educable. You can't educate them. And one of the things that modern teachers do not simply understand is the relationship between emotions and cognitive performance. They think it's a separate phenomenon. So when they get a child, they start aiming right for the R complex, for the, over here.
Right.
How to count, how to do the ABC, right? And you get an imbalanced child. You follow me? They're not really developing intelligent children. They're developing children that can regurgitate information, but you can train a monkey to do that. What do that got to do with teaching? Teaching is a business of the heart. So I have therefore always called upon teachers when I have that occasion to be with them to really quit their profession and become a heart teacher, because that's what reality requires. These children must be emotionally educated, because you cannot develop this cognitive thing. Now, try to understand me. Another hormone and I'm running off on tangents here, but that's how we have to do this, so that's where we get everybody is. Another hormone that the heart produces, this is amazing. There's a hormone called ANF. Anybody familiar with ANF? Okay. ANF is atrial natriuretic factor. This is a hormone that affects every cell in the body. Everything. All of it. Now, here's what happened. Let's say you get angry, right? A genocide, the boss, you just see him coming down your floor. And you see, you don't even like him. You know what I mean? You hate him, blah, 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 right? Well, that start releasing this ANF, all right? That sends a message. Where's my brain at? Took it off. All right. Whatever. All right. So here we go, up to the medulla, right? Goes into this region, right? The amygdala, right? Up to the thalamus, right? Saying danger, right? Because you got our plex stuff going on here, right? So that hormone is going up there. It sends all that action up. It co-opts the neocortex, the intellect, and it presses it in the surface, right? Boom, just like that. That's heart. You see my point? It's an amazing thing. So I mean, there's other thing. I mean, the heart makes dopamine. It makes non-adrenaline and all of this stuff. I mean, it makes its own hormones, folks. I mean, this is something. So I mean, I can say I go on and on about this thing here. But the point I'm making is that unless you train that child how to manage their emotions, then their unmanaged emotion and the negative emotion that will exist in them will be generating this stuff and shooting it up that medulla, firing up their little brain, and everything will be responding to defiantly. They will perceive everything as a threat, as aggression. And they're going to respond appropriately, just like you respond to the boss, right? So these children are bringing so much stress in their little lives, and they have absolutely no skills at relieving their stress. Nor do the teachers have any skills at relieving the student's stress. So what you have is a situation where the child is stressed out emotionally, and you're trying to educate them. And you don't understand that their degree of stress actually shuts down and influences how they think, the whole cognitive process. You follow me? Remember, structure mind, right? So there's a lot more that we can say about the neurology of education, you see? And maybe we'll have an occasion to do so. Let me get this other question before they lose their trend. I know some of y'all 100 billion cells been gone a long time. Probably too long. You ain't gonna know what the hell you had to say. You don't even know the order no more. Who was next? All right.
So all this would pretty much sum up that the ego, that's how the ego is created.
Here, the ego, it begins to get developed. The ego, interestingly enough, doesn't descend to here. Because here's what happened. And I'm glad you brought that up. Once the great washout has occurred,
Right.
and what is left is just your pattern, that paves the way now. So what happens at about the age of 15, there's another great spurt of cellular growth in the brain, in the neocortex section, right?
So you have another opportunity.
Right. There's a second birth. There's another birth. There's a kind of emphasis that is replayed out all over again. It is the birth of the ego. And that ego must be what? Nurtured and modeled. Otherwise, it too will be messed up. Interesting. All right.
Is that similar to the second stage of individuation?
Sort of like the second stage of individuation that we talked in.
Does it take place?
Yeah, that's where individuation really takes place. The final individuation.
Individuation meaning me.
Yeah. So you see how that works? And so you get another burst of growth in neurons and so forth. New connections are made, more possibilities are set up. Now, in the anatomy of ego, I've argued all those stages, and so I'm not going through all of that. But do you understand what I'm saying here? And so when this ego fully descends, right? Because remember, these are this is pre-egoic, right? So forth and so on. Then you get a little bit of it. First stage, first individuation, right? Then so forth and so on. So you understand all of that, so I won't punish them with it. Lakeisha.
Okay, I just wonder, what's the role that melanin plays? You know, there was a big old thing about melanin.
Melanin. The heart also produces its own melanin.
Yeah.
And melatonin is more important.
Right, right.
Melatonin. It produces that too. Yeah. You see, let me just say this, Lakeisha, so that you can really appreciate the supremacy of the heart-brain. And while it is so important that the heart-brain gets developed, that the heart is open, most of our personal suffering and sorrow and sadness is a direct result of the failure of your own heart to be open. You have not opened your heart, and you don't know how to open it. Nobody has told you how to open it. You haven't been nurtured. It has not been modeled. And therefore, your circuits that were given to you to provide you with that ability are not operating. You can't open it. You didn't even know you had them. You see? Now, let's say a little bit something, Lakeisha, about what you just said. You have to understand that this heart brain influences the cranial brain through a series of processes. It influences it neurologically, okay, in the form of neurons and so forth and so on. Remember I said it's got 40,000 neurons entrenched in its own nervous system, and there is a feedback and a feed-to loop between the brain and the heart. They're connected. You follow me? So you got to bear that in mind. One of the other ways that the brain communicates, that the heart communicates to the brain is biochemically. Right? And we've been talking about that. You see? Through these hormones and so forth and so on. It influences the brain and every center in the brain. A third way is biophysically. Now this is interesting. By biophysically we mean in terms of pulse energy. This is interesting because the heart, the pulse, the vibration, that's energy. That's pressure. Vibration. Vibration. The vibration of the heart is felt in the brain. Interesting. And for instance, you can change your brain waves pattern by changing your heart rate. That's another key. That, in fact, was the key to pranayama yoga, where the ancient mystics understood by breathing, prana, by regulating your breath and changing the actual beating of your heart, you changing the rate. The changing of that rate changes pressure, changes vibration. All of that travels up through the brain stem, into the brain, right? And creates what we call coherence. Coherence is when all of the oscillatory systems in the body come into ma'at, harmony. They are vibrating harmoniously. And that is experienced subjectively as well.
It's well-being.
As well-being. You see, total well-being. and not just well-being in your toe. So the actual pulsing energy of the heart is there. The fourth one is in a bioelectrical energy. Interesting. Now you know that the reason that you put these electrodes on your brain and get graphs and all that because the brain is generating electrical signals, right? There's some electricity in there, right? The heart generates a electrical charge that is 60 times greater than the charge in the brain. You understand? There's also electromagnetic field that the brain generates, right? The heart does too. Except that the electromagnetic field that the heart generates, Dr. G, is 5,000 times greater than the electromagnetic field that is generated by the cranial brain. What that creates then is what we call your aura.
Yep.
You got me?
Got it.
Right? There's an aura around everybody. That's the electromagnetic field. And that is generated by the heart. And it's full of all kind of information. When you step into a person's electromagnetic field, you're stepped into their heart field. You see?
When you step into
When you enter into this field that extends on every direction from the body for about 4 to 5 feet. That's in a normal individual. In the Buddha, it says it extends for 24 miles. They said about the Buddha that flowers coming in within the field of his radiance will blossom. That's how life-giving that electromagnetic force field is, you see. Isn't there some people just get in their presence and just feel better? You don't even know why, you see, feel all right. Your worries dissolve, all of that. You know what I mean? Because their force field is stronger. I think there was another question from Charles, no, from Theravada G.
Yeah, I had two brief questions. One was before the first flood wipeout of the neural cells stays intact and develops optimally. How does that impact on the second development?
Okay,
Genes
yes. Yeah. What happens after that second wave of cellular growth takes place, right?
Right. And
Then you're just going to get a slow descending dying of those cells throughout the balance of your life. Follow me?
okay.
And that growth will end, you see, and then just slowly. You know, we're going to lose all of that, all right? The critical thing is really understanding that what we do before a child is 11 is critical. I mean, we really got to stimulate that stuff. Otherwise, you probably never get much development in the prefrontal lobes of the neocortex. It'll remain arrested development.
And does intelligence have any relationship with intuition?
Intelligence is the mother of intuition. And intelligence is rooted in the heart. So you begin to see then, Lakeisha, how the heart communicates and influences the brain, right? Now this is a feedback system. You see, feedback and feed-tube system. These are good questions. Just shout out.
Is it true in this culture? We're taught the opposite. We're taught that the mind is more important than the emotions, and that's one of the arguments why so-called Europeans feel the way they do towards Africans, is that we're more rooted in our emotions instead of our heads, and they pride themselves on being more in the mind than in their hearts. Is that part of our conflict culturally?
Sure, in fact, and that's been observed when you say our, you're talking Western, European, fundamentally. And that's been observed by indigenous people whenever they have encountered Western people. In fact, back in the early 30s, there's a famous encounter between some of the last native Indians that were still closer to the the Native American Holocaust, who understood that, and he was telling a white man that came and they were giving a lecture, said that you white people are only able to think with your cranial brain, what he called your head brain. And he said, and because you are only able to think with your head brain, that's why you are able to kill so wantonly and so ruthlessly, right? Because, and you can figure out ingenious ways to do that, right? And the native chief said, he says you're like that because you don't know how to think with your heart. You see? So it has been understood that there's a higher form of thinking that is done by the heart. And this is called the intelligence of the heart. This is the wisdom of the heart. And what is it that the heart thinks? The heart thinks about what is appropriate and what is in the good of everyone. The head thinking, ego-based. The intellect is always wedded to the service of the ego. Care how developed you get it, right? How many you give it 12 PhDs, you will not change its fundamental function. Its function is to serve the ego. The ego, in most people, is still arrested at the R complex level. Do you see the problem we got now? You got the intellect in the service of something very animalistic. The function of developing the intelligence of the heart is to co-opt and put intellect in. In fact, that's the legitimate function of intellect. That's why intellect emerged in evolution. So that intelligence would have a physical mechanism to translate through. The intelligence needs intellect to manifest itself in the life of individuals. Are you following me? So intellect is very important that we develop it. But that intellect, unless this heart is cultivated, too, is useless. They are complementary phenomena, aren't they? Right? So you got to have intelligence, and most people have simply confused intellect with intelligence, and they have nothing to do with each other. It's a whole different way of thinking. The intellectual person only and always is thinking about themselves. Even when they say they're not thinking about themselves, they're thinking about themselves. Everything that they do is ego-based, right? And they come up with ingenious ways of employing their intellect to fulfill the goals and ambition of their ego. The person that thinks with the heart, the intelligence of the heart, is transcended the ego. Let me lay along opposite here. And when you all need to take watchman break, I just hope you all going to walk out of here and go take them as you need them, because I will go on and on and on. Then when I'm finished, I'm just leaving. So don't be waiting for me to give you a washroom break. Use your intelligence. Let me just outline here briefly. Can I take this off now? You all got that. Although we can still say a lot more about this here. Go ahead, if you don't mind my back to you, go right ahead. Okay, like Miles, all right.
My question is, you and I talk about why now? Why is psychiatry, psychology, I mean, this profound awareness, all these books that are coming out in the field, that the emotional impact on human beings, you know, affects the whole range. All this is coming out now. Now the science of it, and all these books.
Yeah.
Why not?
Well, I think it's a kind of convergence of things. There's also the fact that the last 100 years of psychotherapy, I don't know if you read James Hillman's book. James Hillman, I believe that's his name, surveyed and assessed the whole growth of psychotherapy. And the observation was that after the first 100 years of psychotherapy, people are in worse condition than they were. Right? Right. Right, right. And so that coming out of denial by therapists has triggered a search for something that's going to work. Because they know the shit y'all been doing doesn't work. It took them 100 years. That's not bad. That's pretty quick, considering. There's also been something else that fuels that, this kind of movement, because it's not just in the realm of or culture of psychology and psychiatry. There's also been the observation by people who have invested much into the quote-unquote religious process, who have seen that that's the same case with religions. They too have failed. But after much more than 100 years, after thousands of years, you're getting worse. Religion ain't working. I.e. priest scandals and all of that. You see my point? And so that's why so many people have become anti-religious. Don't mean that they're anti-spiritual, you see, but they are anti-religious because they see clearly this stuff is not working. You see my point? And so now that creates a great search now, doesn't it? They're trying to find what works. And that's why some of them are looking and rethinking about some of the insights that have come down through the great spiritual tradition. But most people are so far removed from the times of a Ptahotep or a Kajami or a Buddha or a Mahavira or a Dadu or the Kabir or any of the great sages and seers and realizers that they can no longer accept these people on the face of their testimony and confession. After all, you live in the modern era, right? And what you worship is science. So that's why I give you science, because, hey, that's still God. So I give you the hard physics of it. I give you the medical that side of it, right? You can't dispute Einstein. You're not even wired for such disputation. You see my point? You see? Now what is happening, though, because of the momentum even in the search of the scientists has broken down. Now you got quantum mechanics, right? Quantum mechanics supporting the Buddha, right? Now you got neurocardiology again supporting these same mystics who have said thousands of years ago that you gotta get your heart right. It started with the great Egyptian and African realizer. They knew it thousands of years ago. You gotta get your heart right. You must get into ma'at. You must get into balance. You must have a requisite degree of intelligence to manage the intellect and the emotions and the more baser instincts and drives associated with the reticular complex. And now science is simply supporting that, right? So this is a great time that we're living in, Siddhanta Sar. Let me get this sister right here.
Getting back to the developmental stages, you talk a lot about the role of the mother and the bonding process. Could you elaborate a little bit on the role of the father and the effects of the bonding or not bonding, or especially on females?
Well, of course, the father plays some role. It's a little bit different role, but there is that role nevertheless. And I think that both parents have to make sure that the bonding occurs. So you got the mother and you got the father. Now, the mother fundamentally is involved in the nurture, right? And should be involved in the modeling and all that other. Well, the father is involved in the modeling too, but not so much in the nurture. But the father provide is stress. You laugh. Trauma. Because stress and trauma is the mechanism underlying growth. You only move because trauma is it. fire hit you. You move. So the father tends to be that force that fuels the evolution. You follow me? That makes the kid grow up. Because your mama will keep you a kid all your life. She's wired for it. She wired, she can't help it. That's that damn oxytocin, you see? So the father is that force that moves out of your comfort zone. And what you'll find is that children that didn't have fathers or didn't have functional fathers are children that do not have the capacity to move beyond their comfort zone. These children tend to be trapped at the eye level. They are preoccupied with comfort. They're scared to get hurt. The little boys grow up to be sissy boys. You seen the sissy boys? Scared to get hurt. I cut my fingers. I play no football. It hurt. Money, it hurt. Can't handle anything that we don't like, discomfort and so forth and so on. So that's what a father force is there to do, is to produce that force that forces you to move, to grow beyond your limits, right? Otherwise you will remain in your limits, your initial limitations, right? You will remain childish. At some level, you see? So you need that. Girls need it too. You see, and boys need it, and so forth and so on. Now, much more, Arlene, can be said about it. You know what I mean? And we have said much about it. There's all kinds of tapes, super law, where we have exhausted that whole conversation.
Thank you.
Yes, sister, and then Charles.
I'm comprehending some of the stuff in my head, but I'm getting this. My question is, if you have a child who's lost their father, and it affects them emotionally, I mean, how will it affect them emotionally?
If you have what?
A child who's lost their father in terms of their growth, like I'm talking about that 11, 15 years.
Yeah. It's gonna have some impact. You see, but there can be other model imperatives provided to the child that will stimulate that circuitry. You see, other forces in the human environment that could trigger that. There may be some mentor, some teacher that child is given the experience of a father's love, you know, but that has to be given somewhere. And maybe once this child is past the age of 11, then they may close down and never be able to open up to that kind of relationship with another man. You see? Because it didn't happen in time. You follow me? I mean, it gets to be something. And you can tell one of the things that you see with grief and how it functions in children is that when they've experienced a loss and they're in the process of bereavement and going through that whole process, what they tend to do is exaggerate and elevate the status of the lost one. So their daddy suddenly becomes this figure blown way out of proportion. You know what I mean? He becomes the great daddy. Hey, the man was alcoholic. Beat your mother. You see my point? But when there's a loss, the child exaggerates and elevates the lost one. And that sets up a kind of image of manhood that they can't really attain because they have artificially created and exaggerated their concept of a man, i.e. their father. And boys, for instance, inherit their sense of manhood from their father. That's the source of their whole concept of what it means to be a man, right? And if they got this exaggerated concept of a man, then they're going to be frustrated. And it can work in the opposite direction, right? They can have an image of what it means to be a man based on the abusive father, right? And they can mimic that. The moral imperative goes both ways, doesn't it? Right. So it is something that you really have to teach them through. All the more reason to develop the intelligence of their heart. You see?
One question.
Yes, dear?
When they, in any event where they get that image that you're talking about, the great dad, will that avoid them from mentoring
With-
with other males?
Sometimes it will, because they may reject other men because you're not as good as my dad. You can never be my dad. You can't be my father. They will tell, even if the mother get married again, the next guy coming in, you ain't my daddy. That's the first thing the boy gonna tell them, shit, you ain't my daddy. That's great.
Question over there.
Yes,
I was just
I'm
wondering,
sorry.
is the same true with the mother, like mother loss, just bring something that's going into replace?
Yeah, yeah. See, so it's a lot of that. So it's on both sides of the gender thing. Both sides of the gender thing. It is very, very interesting when you pause and think about it. I mean, it's an extraordinary investigation. Extraordinary. Charles?
In terms of the stress of growing up as a child, the father himself, how can he realize that if he's putting too much stress on that child?
Yeah, because
When will he know that?
what will be the symptoms, right? Some of the symptoms of when you have put too much stress on the child. I think this is a good one, because when you talk to children and you start talking about their anger, and you start getting them to outline the objects of their anger, right? Who or what they angry at. And in children, you're going to find the number one object of children anger are their parents. 2, their teachers. And 3, their peers. In that order. And because the parents are a source of great stress, usually the father. You know what I mean? Because that's his function. But you can tell when you're putting stress on it to grow them, but you must also give them the ability to convert that stress into the growth. You must give them intelligence. You see? You must help them develop their heart. Well, you can find it when they do that, because one, you're going to find that the kid, and let's say if you're the father and you're putting a lot of stress, you're going to look and see, that'll be exposed in the relationship. You'll feel it. And so instead of a feeling of love, there will be a feeling of fear. The child will fear the father, because the father is perceived as a threat, or the mother, whichever the case may be, and will react to that person as a threat, which means that they will either fight with you, or they will withdraw from you. They either shut down. They freeze up, right? And you can see, those of you who are teachers, when some parents come up to school, you can just look at the child response when his mom or daddy walk in the room. You can tell. You can nail the relationship. It's all in the body language. You see, some kids little kids pee on themselves, they be so afraid, wet themselves. You just see. Some of you all wetted yourself. You were that afraid of your father, your mother, and so forth and so on.
Can that be changed?
Sure, it can be changed. That's the whole idea. Sure, it can be changed. But you have to do a lot of work on, the parent got to do a lot of work on themselves, right? And that gets translated over and becomes available now to help heal and relieve that unnecessary stress on that child. You'll see a lot of anger in the child. That anger will take on all kinds of forms. Sometimes you'll see you'll see attention deficit disorder development, hyperactivity, and all kinds of other things. So the list is in this child, and I mean, that's a fascinating discussion. But hopefully that says a little bit something about it. But there's always those telltale signs when you are providing more stress than that child is capable of handling. So you must act.
We need a spark here. So how can we best use the little time that we have to minimize the stress and create whatever needs to happen? So because these people have to go back into a nurture-less environment. So even if we manage to do a good job.
The truth, Bhagwan, is that the whole educational system has to be dismantled. It is right from the top down. There is no solution within the context of its present structure. That's why all of these sincere, hard-working teachers have not been able to transform it. You can't transform it because the structure itself is not compatible to such transformation. It is not heart-oriented or heart-based, right? And you're not there to make them good human beings anyway. Your job, according to them, is to help them prepare to get a damn job. And then to do that 20 years from now, right? Now he's 6 years old, you preparing him for 20 years out in the future. Your education is not even relevant to the now. You're not even educating in the now. You're not presently educating this child at all on the basis of their reality. You follow me? The whole system has to be wiped out and rebuilt from the ground up. Now that's the truth. Okay? That's the truth.
So,
You can't, now you can fix a child. That's a different matter. But that, you know, if you got that difficult child in the classroom, you can fix that child. You can't fix the system.
right,
You see?
that's what I'm talking about.
The system too big.
No,
Right.
but
So the
kid-
thing is that you have, and you said it yourself, it's a heart-to-heart transaction. It's heart to heart. And you must develop a heart relationship. When you have accomplished that, you will lose the feeling of your relationship with the student being adversarial. It is not adversarial, right? That whole feeling drops out. But it's heart to heart. When you have opened your heart, then your whole relationship to the student is different. It'll become human. It ain't no longer a job. You see, the distinction between you and the child blurs. That your oxytocin reaches out now, start bonding with this child. You follow me? They almost become your child. And that whole process, then the hormones kicks in, you see? So your whole dynamic in that relationship changed. And your heart, you see, transmit to the student heart the experience of being loved. Just as they are. You see? You become capable of that. You see? Yourself. So if you can open your heart, it would trigger the opening of the child's heart. That's how it always has been. In the tradition, beloved, we have called it Shaktipat. You're familiar with all of that. But you can't give Shaktipat if you don't have Shaktipat. And you won't have Shaktipat unless your heart is open. When you open your heart, when you recover and begin to cultivate and develop the intelligence of your heart, that's a power. That's a force. That's real force. And you become capable of doing I love you. Prior to the opening of your heart, you can only say I love you. And usually that's all you do. I love you. I love you. But you can't do I love you. You follow me? Got too much reptilian in you. You can't do it. It's a great ideal, great concept. You see? People say it all the time. I really want to be married. I really want to meet somebody. Like you on a planet by yourself. Damn, look around you. There's 6 billion people in this world. And you having trouble finding one of them to do I love you with? Big R. What happened in these kind of people, they become autoerotic. Narcissistic. They've fallen in love with themselves and they don't want to share it with nobody else. Narcissism. Masquerading as the impulse of love. It's not the impulse of love. The moment you really want to love somebody, instantly that somebody appears in your life. That's the law of love. Oh, got your attention now, huh? That was the problem. You ain't been finding no love, huh? I see. All right. So you must simply develop the ability to open your heart. Now, I was saying that process is developmental, like anything else in human nature. It is developmental. So the first thing you got to do is overcome the R complex force. You got to get beyond that. So you got to now create, remember I said coherence before? That synchronizing the body, mind with the heart. That's the whole function of the heart. The heart provides light to the body mind, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't that the source?
Yep.
Don't patronize me, is it?
Yes.
Right. It's the source of life. It provides the body mind with life. What made you think that was a small matter? When this body mind and all of the system pertaining to this body mind can be brought into ma'at, into harmony, into coherence and rhythm with the heart, the intelligence of the heart, right? Then you have handled all that business. You see, you have integrated all of those instincts, right? So you still got the same R complex here, right? But now that R complex is in the service of intelligence, and that's a different kind of R complex activity. Are you with me? That's a different kind. So now that anger that previously was in the service of the R complex by way of ego, right? That same anger becomes righteous now, doesn't it? That's a different kind of anger. That anger liberates. That's the anger of a Nzinga. Follow me, of a king said, hey, you see, you got to let my people go. And I'm ready to die for that sake. That's a different kind of anger, because your anger, you ain't ready to die. You mad, I'm mad at you, but you ain't ready to die. You gonna stand back and throw something. And you're willing to die for a cause greater than yourself. That's the real shift. But it's the same raw energy of the R complex. Same thing. The pursuit of comfort. Now, but not for myself no more. The comfort of those around me. You see my point? Gotta be comfortable. That's father force. That's when a man has achieved some liberation from his R complex. Now this man becomes capable of commitment. Now he said, these are my wife, my children. I'm going to take care of them. And if necessary, I'll work 5 jobs. You follow what I'm saying? Whole different thing than this other superficial R complex man. All his money is for himself. Shit, I ain't got no, I ain't got it. I ain't got nothing. All for himself. He husbands his car and his wardrobe. He does not husband a woman at all. You seen them. They got stacks of toys that they play with. And their wife ain't got a dress hanging in the closet. They done spent it all on their video games, football games, blah, blah, blah.
Ask about this Kundalini yoga. That, and what that is running the energy up from the base chakra. Now, and people will really have problems with that. And it was suggested not to do that because of the problems. But another type of meditation activates the heart and use the heart to activate all the other centers.
Right. They say it prepares all the other centers. Then it can handle the force of the rise of this energy.
Because if that doesn't happen,
then it'll burn you can't handle it. You will simply take that energy and put it in the service of guess what? Your ego. You might develop psychic powers or things of that nature, but you will use them for selfish purposes. Won't be for the benefit of mankind, be for you. You see? And only for you. It's on the black side of magic. You know, as they call it, unfortunately. There was some other question. We covered so much here. I mean, we put a lot of stuff out here today. And so much more. I mean, I ain't get started yet.
I just really was inspired to say something when you were talking about the bonding with the mother. And, you know, I remember reading something about psychopaths, and one theory is that those people that develop into psychopaths missed that whole bonding experience, and perhaps as early as the first 6 months of their life.
Right.
And it was so, I guess, profound that, you know, even if the person was 20 or 10 years old, it's still,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
there's no way
In
to
fact, you got to
recover
get it. You got to get it 0-1. That's the first. See, the developmental stages in the first developmental stage. Those are the critical ones. I mean, there's some you have to get there. That's one of them. You see, that's one of them. Because remember, I was telling you that all along that axis of age, as it pertains to the chronological stages of human development, I've said that there were always spurts of wiping out, right? And so these spurts are occurred. You know, one occurs after the age of 1, another one occurs after the age of 3, so forth and so on. So there are these many spurts of that washing out. And whatever has not been violated, gone. That circuit is wiped out. And they can't. They don't have it. They don't have the circuitry. There's no neurological foundation for the behavior. It don't even exist. It's tragic. Yes, please.
Master, you also was telling me about how, with that same process that she was talking about, that now what will happen if all those neurons are wiped out, that anything that's introduced has not already been set up and foundation-wise, it won't even take.
Won't even
so
register.
some force from the outside has to be introduced to
Right.
reactivate those things.
That's
that
right.
there.
But I was just saying that what happens after the pattern? What is the psychology that occurs in each individual case after that pattern has set in at that age of 11 or 12, right? Once that personality has been locked into you. Now, for instance, let's say that up until that age, that what you experienced in the model imperatives that were associated that you had, or in the environment, you see, that you were in. Let's say that all that you experienced in that early childhood environment was, let's say, chaos, fighting, cursing, violence, right? Now you got this little 3-year-old child or something in the midst of this kind of environment, right? Now, what's stimulating those 100 billion circuits now? Chaos. What are the circuits being patterned for? Chaos. Now, in the temporal lobe of the brain, I've said that the amygdala is that part of the brain that retains and defines what we consider to be normal or familiar. Because whatever occurs the most frequent becomes familiar. It becomes your norm. So let's say this child who experienced all this chaos, when they're not around chaos, they feel what? Strange. So when I come to school and I'm 5 years old, because of course I was one of them kind of kids. So you tell me, I don't know. I think it's a lot of myth. But I remember when I was about 5, when I went to school, because we came from a family where they were just singing and blues playing, and you know, so when we had sing, we're singing the blues, or we're singing, you know, off the radio. That's how my circus got wired. So when I went to school and they started singing all them nursery rhymes, I wasn't into that nursery rhyme. I was gonna blow up in here. Soon make so much money because you know we hooked. He's rewired to that music. And so I felt totally uncomfortable in kindergarten. It was foreign, you know what I mean? And I had some adjustment problems. Of course, my father fixed them It's amazing how a belt on your ass can rewire you. It has to be there when you're young. So I got rewired. But I wasn't initially wired for that kind of environment. There are some children that are growing up in an environment that is full of chaos and conflict. And that's what they identify with. That's what their circuits becomes tuned to. That's what they become familiar with. And that's what becomes normal for them. You see that when you marry a person, you immediately find out where they've been. When you marry a person, what you really encounter is this. You're marrying their amygdala. And you see. Because now, you find they're always fussing. And you come from a family, there was no fussing. Now this is a problem. Because he or she don't feel right unless we fight. No. Unless you beat me. You got to hit me. If you love me, you hit me. They get all, romantic after a good fight. Because that's what they associate. Still there. And if you don't have enough chaos, we can't be together because this is not an exciting relationship.
You don't love me, it's how it's associated.
It doesn't fit in with that. And so the amygdala sends a message through the thalamus and that whole hippocampal area of the brain up to the neocortex area, right? Neocortex presses into the service the intellect, right? That now is able to rationalize the violence. Presses the intellect. So that's the way you find out how to go in the house and how to start some shit.
Right.
Oh, you're a genius at that. Oh, you didn't wash one of these spoons. I'm pissed off. I take that very personal. I mean, they geniuses at coming up with shit to fight about, to criticize, to start stuff with. Intellect pressed into the service of maintaining a pattern that is negatively formed on the basis of negative stimuli that they experience. You see people who are chronically angry, bad mood. Folks, they were assholes when they were 3 years old. They just didn't become an asshole when they hit 40. You could have seen them. If you had seen them at 5 years old, you know how you could see little girls that's, going to be pretty, or little boys, are going to be athletic or muscular. You can spot the 5-year-old asshole. I know they're going to be an asshole. They wired already. So I don't know why you shocked. Just find them later on in life, the same old asshole they were when they were, that's it. They are biological and neurological assholes. And unless a miracle occurs to rewire, to override their circuitry. In fact, that force has been called, by the way, for those of you who don't know it, grace. Grace. Yes, beloved. And then, to not to stop, I didn't forget you.
Really in bad shape.
Wiring. Wiring. In fact, one of the things about music is because music is a sound, and it is a very powerful force in shaping circuitry because of vibration. And while I can't go into all of that, I mean, the neurocardiology of it all and the psychology of it all is profound, because we talked about the heart. First sense organ in the body to develop is the ear. In fact, all of the circuits that is associated with the ear and hearing and that whole thing, all of that is myelinated at birth. It's myelinated inside of the womb. So when you come out, it's already fixed. the ear, and particularly the right ear, takes in that vibration. And you see what the ear is, don't you? Right? And there's proximity to the limbic system and the amygdala and all of that. So you got the right idea. It goes like a direct path into the limbic. Right? So that all goes in there. That's why you see you feel the music, literally, particularly the bass. That's why there's so much bass in the music, because of that bass rhythm, vibratory frequency. It's the most powerful one is the body. You can feel it. Your body actually starts vibrating. See, sound, whenever sound interact with matter, it shapes matter. Now, this is just straight physics, right? If you ever put some sand on the head of a drum, hit it, it'll take a shape. Or strum it, it'll take a different shape. You see my point? So sound actually shapes matter. Thus, it shapes these circuitries, right? So it's a profound thing. It also impacts on your attention. I mean, the physics of sound is fascinating. But here's an interesting thing. Now, let's say you got all that loud music. Now, guess what your circuits are being wired to respond to in terms of hearing music? Only loud music. That shit got to be bumping. Otherwise, you can't hear it. You can't even hear no teacher talking. You can't even pick it up. It ain't bumping. Which means that you cannot even hear anything subtle at all.
So you need to take a djembe in the room with you.
That's right. That's right. Subtle stuff doesn't even register at all. It's the same thing with all of the senses, isn't it? Right? How they are wired, the circuitry. So now you got kids today, and that's what my son was talking about. You got kids today with television, right? Third problem. I said before, first one was daycare, because you want to know things messing up the kids, right? Daycares, right? The medical, technological co-optation of the childbearing process, television, video game, not for their content. It's the light and sound effects in the wiring of the brain. And see, when you deal with light and sound, you're dealing with, seeing. You're dealing with vision and so forth and sound. This makes up of 83% of your attention, right? 83% of your experience that you are having is arising out of these things. Now, what happens is that by all of this exaggerated light, because it's got to glitter. If it don't glitter, the kids don't what? They don't see it. Shit got to glitter. Glitter. Bling, bling. If it ain't bling, bling, it don't register. I'm just telling you how it is. So now you can understand what happened. Over time, as our kids get more and more acclimated and wired for that kind of a light sound show, their capacity for subtle use of their attention diminish. ADD. Right? So that now this child really cannot hold their attention on anything that is not bling bling or loud. It don't even register. In fact, if you don't give them bling bling and a lot of noise, they go into the next cycle. You see, you can't hold their attention with anything normal in terms of light and sound. So when you're up there and you're going through your talk, you'll see it even in the large day. I do a lot of lectures, you know what I mean? And you can see people go to class. I say, it's all right. I don't mind, because I understand you're limited. You see my point? This stuff is way too so, and dry, and boy, I see it in meditation when a person trying to learn to meditate. I see you rascals when you're learning to meditate. I'll be sitting there. I don't be asleep, but I know you all are. You see my point? Because this way, you can't even handle this kind of stuff. In fact, you can't even go to sleep unless you got the radio on. That's how you go to sleep. Now you get that radio on, your TV going on, you can really. It's amazing circuitry. So, we can really talk about this thing. This thing is profound. Arlene and Siddhanta, I'm going to get you last. I'm going to defer just a little bit because I haven't talked to her in a long time, but I'm going to come back. And do you have something on the side to say too?
No,
Why not? You really have much to say. Arlene?
I have a client that recently released a hip-hop educational CD. In light of this, would that be something that would help the children to learn better or to be more attentive to their studies or whatever? It has the beats that they're looking for. When you hear it, you're rocking your head, but it's talking about homonyms and verbs and adjectives and
Well, they got to
fractions.
have the other part also wired to receive the content. So just simply cloaking it in music, you know what I mean? Formulating it, you know what I mean? In music doesn't guarantee that it ends because there's another part with contents, right? But there's another part that has also got to be wired, right? To receive what the music contains. You follow me?
Okay.
You follow me? That's why there's 1 trillion connections. Because the phenomena of this simple conscious condition that you're in requires for you to smile. Trillions of cells are involved in that process. Your smile is a whole brain thing. Everything you do is whole brain. And it requires all of the system to operate. Especially the heart. So the wiring has to be there, you see, for what we call the afferent, right? The afferent and the efferent connections have to be in place. Right, psychologists? Yes. Who else had something? Siddhanta Sahib, yes. I'm going to stay about another 20 minutes so you all can leave prior to that so you know what time I'm leaving, so you know now, right? Please show yourself.
Child behavior, just adding some depth to this whole concept. Why children
Speak up a little bit.
Yeah, can we hear you?
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I was speaking.
See, I told you, bling, bling, man. See, I don't want to understand this. I bling my stuff out.
That's right.
We're talking about all the influences on children's behavior and why it's so hard to look at and understand, and even at the adult level. You just added some depth, even to why children will bond with traumatic experiences. They'll bond with sexual abuse experiences and reproduce them for the pleasure. And they'll bond with the perpetrators.
Yeah.
They'll bond to the point where they'll become perpetrators and all this stuff.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to make sense, but the whole concept of trauma bonding, and that's a whole range of
That's a whole other thing. But you begin to see when you understand the neurology of that phenomenon. See, that's why I say there's a neurology associated with every kind of psychological and emotional disorder. There is a real, true neurological correlate, because they are parallel systems, aren't they? And parallel processes. And you'll get even more insight when you look at the sympathetic versus the parasympathetic functions in those instances, right? And how all that occurs, you see? Now, for instance, there's some people who don't feel right unless they've been abused. You follow me? It don't feel right. You see? It's unfamiliar. And it's rejected. They wish to avoid that, you see? Because remember, whatever is defined as being like, dislike, the reptilian complex is going to operate off that. It don't care what it is. But if is programmed to, quote unquote, recognize this is something I like, then that's what it will attract.
So part of the job of the teachers and the therapists and all this is to go beyond the labeling of it and really try to understand the
Right.
origins of all of it.
Right.
Move past just,
Move past all of that stuff.
Get to it.
It's to get out of the brain and get to the source of the brain, right? And control all of that through the brain. So as you open that heart up and you help develop the intelligence of the heart, as you engage the client in a curriculum, you see, that is purpose toward that, then automatically it brings about these changes in otherwise very difficult treatment cases. You see, it is a profound matter, but you're absolutely right, beloved. You see. So all of that becomes. So a person that is chronically angry don't feel right unless they're mad. They just don't feel right. They gotta, shit, I ain't angry. This is. A person that is wired to be worried, they ain't got nothing to worry about. There's something. Things are going too. I need something to worry about. You follow me? So then they got to create something to worry about. They got to sabotage or do something. All right? So all of that goes into play. That's why I said that this subject of emotional self-management and its implication across the entire spectrum of human development is critical. It's critical for you as a professional, of course, but it's even more critical for you as an individual. Because ultimately in therapy, you cannot separate the personal from the professional. And you can never be more therapeutic than you are advanced person. Actually, it is you who heal and not your technique. That's another misnomer. But the unenlightened therapists think it's technique. What kind of technique? Give me what? It's your sheer presence and the electromagnetic force field that is created from your heart that envelops the individual. You see? And they enter into your womb and they are nurtured. They don't even know, it's not even conscious. It's not in the talking. It's in the presence. Literally. So, for instance, in non-Western culture, when a person is in those states, very often they just put them in the field of nature. Take them out. They got a nice little cabin or hut at a lake, nice and quiet. Take them out there, bring them some food, and leave them alone. And nature cures the mental illness. Because he steps within that electromagnetic field that is the great field. And it gets rewired. It's a powerful thing. So that's why the 100-year cycle of psychotherapy has failed, because those practicing it has not really understood anything for the most part about this stuff that we're talking about today. So this is not cutting edge stuff I'm talking to you about today. This is bleeding edge. You follow me? It's a whole different thing. And it has even more implication for those of you who are involved in a spiritual process. And as you know, everything I do ultimately is aimed for such a person. You see? Now, those others who are come to these kind of workshops that get something from it, that's nice. And I appreciate that. But my overall intention is to serve those who are involved in the great spiritual journey, who have already begun to enter into the stages of developing their heart. You see? Because they will be able to use this kind of talk that I do as a means to aid them and accelerate such growth. Yes, Charles?
So what I'm getting from instead of in my field, you notice they still got to develop. Instead of developing through the brain, you develop it through the heart.
Right, right. You got to give them certain skills. And let's talk finally then in the last closing minutes about what this curriculum of heart development looks like. Would that be all right? Now, before I say that, now remember again, the key to emotional self-management is that the individual must be given the skills to generate an alternative to the negative emotional state that they're in. They must have the ability to generate an alternative emotional state. Are you with me? Now, how do you do that? Again, people that have this high EQ or who have understood the wisdom of the heart, who has heart knowledge, know how to intentionally self-generate emotional conditions. Oh boy, I should start with this first, but you all wouldn't appreciated it. Huh? You see, now it makes sense, and back to my, I haven't forgot your question. All right. Those people who attain heart knowledge, beloved, are able to generate their own emotional experience as an alternative to being at the mercy of whatever emotional condition that is stimulated in them. See, now somebody says something to you, insults you, you see, violates your image of yourself, which ain't real no way, right? You don't have no option but to get angry. Anger is your only option. And you must suffer it until this person apologizes, which they may never do. Till they apologize or something bad happened to them and you feel somehow, avenged. Blah, 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 blah. In either case, you are not a factor in the emotional condition that you are in. There is something very tragic about you not being a force in your own emotional experience, isn't it? That is the absence of heart. That's what it feels like. You may know when your heart is closed and you have no heart knowledge because you don't feel in control of how you feel at all. You always feel like a victim. You always feel like on the receiving. You always feel that somebody else is making you angry and making you sad and making you unhappy. Always. You always are feeling victimized. Always. And you're always scanning, trying to see who might try to victimize you next. You see? Who's going to mess with me? You see? Now, so we have to begin to talk very practically about this matter. Otherwise, it remains at the level of rhetoric and philosophy and, unfortunately, psychology. And that stuff, we already said, don't work. So I want to show you what I'm working with, okay? All right. Show me what you're working with. All right. Now, since we know that the curricula then have to consist of methods or a whole entire methodology that enables you to shift and generate alternative emotional states at will and in the moment of a difficult emotional experience. Don't help you if you gotta wait 6 hours for that shit to kick in. You need something that work right now, right here, while this boss is coming down finna, mess with me. Because if he say the wrong thing, I'm gonna kill somebody today. Is that right? Now, again, remember when we start off at the top of the conversation where I argued and presented you with the observation that anger management was just one aspect of this curricula, but you have to also work on the other ones? Let's revisit that again. Now, very simply put, what is the alternative and opposite emotional condition to anger? Huh? Well, yeah. Well, yeah, compassion. All of those sound right. Compassion. Yeah, tolerance. Acceptance, you got it right. Now, when you are in a state of anger, right? And you're trying to resolve your anger intellectually, are you going to succeed? No way. You're going to try to talk yourself out of being angry. That don't work. It don't work. Does it? In fact, it is your self-talking that has got you into the state to begin with. So, and you all who've been through the anger drama understand the relationship between your anger experience and self-talking, that inner dialogue. So forth and so on. But in any case, emotional self-management is about becoming capable of intentionally generating the anecdotal emotional experience, the opposite experience. Now the question becomes, how do I shift my emotions and have the experience of compassion? How do you do that? What is the technology for that? Well, your mind and all that is making the anger state, isn't it? Isn't the anger a mental construct? Yeah. Then, seems to me you must mentally construct this opposite, don't you? And it's in that moment, right? Sure. We'll talk a little bit more about that process. Let's take the next one, lust, right? When you are in that emotional condition that is lust, right? That's a negative state, isn't it? Sure it is. But nevertheless, you are in that state for whatever reason. See, some beautiful Adonis man, you know what I mean, is pulled up outside in a Rolls Royce. You know, Denzel is coming to get you in a Rolls Royce. And he ain't got no shirt on, the muscles rippling, and you lonely, and ain't got no man, and watching all these movies. Shit. Right? And with men, anybody could be. She don't even need no teeth in her head. It's a woman. And then you instantly, you in the throw who's trying to fight it off. What do you do? How do you shift out of that lust state? And it don't have to necessarily be in relationship to sex, because you can have lust for all kinds of things, for food, right? Bodily comfort. I mean, it's anything, right? But whenever you are in that grip, what must you be able to generate in that moment as an alternative to lust? Come on, anger management students. Did y'all sleep in here? Were they sleep in this class, Brother G? What must you? Contentment? Who said it? All right, right. Contentment. What else? Restraint. That's the fundamental. Right? Restraint. You must develop the ability to delay gratification, right? You must be able to generate that emotional condition of not needing the thing that you lusted for, right? That's why he got in there, the satisfaction, the contentment, right? You must create the emotional experience of satisfaction. And part of the problem of the person that is full of lust is they can't get no what? No matter what they do. All right? We go on and on. The next one, greed. That's where you got contentment proper, right? And I hope you all know enough about all of this. I don't have to unpack any of this. Attachment. And of course, vanity. Now this gives us a beginning outline. So this stuff here becomes the kind of curricula for the self-management, development. Now, do you develop compassion by reading about it? Lots of books about it? What about restraint? No? We can't get this through books? Through books and all of that? Well, now here's what's interesting. Now you're going to see the genius of the heart. Why the heart is the boss. I told you before that the heart can influence the limbic system directly, right? Now you know it contains your emotions, all that, but it also contains a lot of other stuff, don't it? Your creative abilities, creative imagination, etc., right? Imagination is simply the ability to create the experience of something that is not present in your sensorial field. Outside time and space. For instance, dreaming that's occurring, you know, when you go there, right? Do you see in dreaming? Do you hear? Are you having all the sensory experience? Is it anywhere out here? Not at all. The capacity is inherent in that, at that level because this is implicate. Remember? It contains all of them. The seeds of seeing is here, right? Now that seeing can be translated by the eye, right? Or the ear. But the seeing, qua seeing, is transcended to the eye, right? In fact, the eye don't even see this stuff. It sees a vision of it, a picture. And the picture is made by this. It's an amazing thing. We ain't going to go into all of it. But I just want you to appreciate this thing now. Now, we said that the heart is able to influence this. So how do we do that? All right? So let's say that you're angry. In fact, for all of these things, it's become very simple because it's almost like a very one-size-fit-all. You got a technique, or just a few techniques, that just about takes care of all and every form of negative emotion that is possible for you to experience. All right? Just a few of them. One is that if in that moment, rather than giving your attention to the negative emotion condition that you're in, you give it to something else, right? And you give it to something else that you have experienced that is the opposite and feels better than that negative experience. So for instance, let's say if in a moment of anger or lust or any of those, if one is able to give one's attention to someone or something that someone has done for them that they have really appreciated. If you think about someone that you appreciate in that moment and begin to re-enter into that experience, because your creative faculties enable you to generate the experience of anything, whether it is present or not. And it is outside of time and space, so it's not limited. In that very moment, let's say you can remember your mama. In fact, in the Army, when soldiers were really wounded and close and on that edge, where death looked like was inevitable, or the pain became too much, who did they holler for? Bilal? Mama! Because you reach back to mama. And if you can reach mama, if she done mama stuff, it's going to trigger a release of all the hormones associated with that experience. Oh, There you go, right. I think, Paravakaji, you saw that light there. I seen your flashes coming out of your head. That A and F that I was talking about to you, that heart release, is released. Vroom, and it moves through every cell in this body. Right? And that's gone. It wipes the anger out. Gone. You have shifted your whole emotional experience. You see, great actors are able to do this. Method acting. Are you the actor? There's my man there, right? They can shift into emotional. They do it for a living, get paid. But everybody can do it, not just these great actors. You follow me? You too have the skills of Denzel. You just haven't developed them. And Denzel don't even know how to use his skills. He's just using the shit to make money. So when he go home and his wife and them have a fight, he don't know how to shift. No heart knowledge. You know what I mean? You know, it's like a monkey trained, to press button and he could drive a car, but this monkey ain't got no sense. Just mechanically able to go through motions. You see, heart sense is a different matter. But when you train in the heart, then you're training yourself, and thus you can train others to be able to develop that same capacity like a Oscar-winning actor to shift emotions. The great actor, when the scene said cry, they right there, on time, and the tears are real. All of it is there. They're crying for real. And it reaches out across that screen, and it triggers you, and you crying. It's powerful stuff. But you can do the same thing. You follow me? Yes, Monsoon.
Is all anger negative?
No, anger. No, not all of it. Some of it has a positive effect. But I said before, anger in the service of intelligence, under the domination and control of heart, is a different matter. It's that anger that is in the service of your intellect, neurotic-based anger, ego-based anger, anger that is around because you have been threatened at some level your ego, your image of yourself, which ain't even real in the beginning. It's nothing but a myth. It's all bullshit. You follow me? And then you waste your entire capacity of your body, mind in the defense of bullshit. Right? And then when I say bullshit, I mean literally bullshit, because you mess up your whole body. Right? Because when you are in that state of anger, Monsoon, your sympathetic part of the autonomic nervous system is overworking, right? All that constriction, arteries are constricting, right? Blood trying to go up. Your blood pressure is way out of whack. You're going to have a damn stroke. You mess your body up with that stuff. You get sick. You follow me? You get sick. You put all that stress on your body starts breaking down. You follow me? It destroys you because it's in the hands of a fool. It's in the hands of the ego. So the answer again, there is some anger has a use if intelligence is guiding it. The heart. But in any case, again, coming back to this curricula, folks. So you can think about that person in your life where you have had this sincere experience of gratitude and appreciation. And using your limbic capacity generated in that moment, and you will shift and your emotions. It is an amazing thing. In the spiritual process, this has been called dhyana. Dhyana. Of course, dhyana cannot occur unless the relationship to the guru is based on appreciation and gratitude. Otherwise, you can't do dhyana because you won't feel nothing. You don't have the circuitry in place for it. There's no hormones for it. Your heart, you don't have a heart relationship. You're related to the guru at the level of the heart, intellect. You see? Just as if you only have an intellectual relationship with your mother, then you cannot regenerate the experience of appreciation and gratitude, can you? That's the whole purpose that gives the Africans the ability to make right use of their ancestors. Them ancestors are practical. They are kept alive for practical practical, useful, spiritual purposes. Because when things are too rough, you pull one of them ancestors out here. You sankofa. You go back and get one of them. You see? You snatch them out of thin ether and bring them back into the field of your experience. And in that moment, you're all right. You follow me? They can go and put you in a boiling pot of water, and like those sisters, as you melt down, you don't even twitch because you're someplace where the body can't go. You follow me? This is powerful medicine, folks. This is the wisdom of the heart.
So that first part you just put is the ability to bind, to be bound.
The ability to shift your attention to the
Initiating is like the attitude of gratitude and appreciation, you become bound to them.
Well, this is a prior experience. You don't. It ain't got nothing to do with them.
Okay.
It's not a reaction to them. It transcends them.
Right.
It has nothing to do with them. It's like forgiveness has nothing to do with a person.
Okay.
You follow me? Like you forgive a person not because you find some basis for such forgiveness. The person is really wrong. Totally wrong. Way out of line. Way out of whack. You do not do some intellectual gymnastic in your head and recalculate and try to make that legitimate. It was wrong. But you forgive them as an act on your own behalf because you refuse to suffer your anger.
So you go even deeper into the level of the heart. Where that
You were never in the level of heart. This is the level of heart. What you're talking about, beloved, is the level of your mind. You're looking for some kind of intellectual way to deal with your anger. I'm telling you, that is not the way. I'm saying it's very simple. Has somebody loved you? When you think of them, how did that make you feel? If it make you really feel good, and if your love for deep, it will wash out the anger. Like the great flood that we talked about earlier, it will flood out the anger. It washes it away. It washes it out of the system. Why? Because it's more powerful. You follow me? But that's why I said it must be sincere. It must be sincere and it must be real. And that's the key to method acting, isn't it? You got to recall something that was real for you. It can't be no fabricated stuff. You follow me? You got to reach back into your real lived experience, back to that instance, right? Where the tenderness was this, that it forces you to cry. You follow me? That ain't acting no more, is it? You have become that, haven't you? Great acting never looks like acting. That's what makes it great. What you're talking about is acting. I'm not talking about acting.
Master, that piece right there, I remember I was sitting in a circle of some people one time when we were going through this thing, and one of the people had violated some other people in the circle. And we were going around, and everybody was expressing how they felt. And they were really angry with this person. I mean, to the point that they would have killed him right there. They were very angry. And as they were going around, I was thinking, boy, I can't wait till my turn comes, because I'm going to really cut him up. They think they cut him up. Mm-hmm. And when they got to me, the anger in me, I don't know what happened, but it was gone. It completely washed out. And I just broke down and started crying. And I felt so much compassion for the person. Mm-hmm. It was gone.
It's gone. Yeah, that's why I said wipes it out. That's why I said the key to emotional self-management is the intentional shifting of your emotions. Not rationalizing them, shifting them. It's not a rational thing. It is trans-rational, trans-neocortexual, right? It's heart here. You know what I mean? Now, when you move into that recollection of episode of sincere and real appreciation, that even changes your heart rate. Your heartbeat change. When this heart rate change, remember those 4 things I talked about? Neurological influence, biochemical influence, biophysical influence. All of that changes. right? And that ANF that I talked about cruises through the body mind. And you're transformed in that moment. Boom! You ain't even the same person that was angry before. Even at the cellular level. If Buddha is able to make such a transition into the heart that is stable, they're able to stay in the process. And so, the person that you insulted don't even exist. Not only is not here, he don't even exist. Gone. I mean, it's to be profound. But are you all appreciating what I'm talking about here? You're doing a little bit of it. You can feel it. You see, Brownie, that's right. Because this is hard. You feel this in your heart. This ain't head. This ain't calculation. This ain't writing no shit on no paper. This ain't doing no journalizing. This ain't no talk therapy. This is heart. It is instantaneous. It is heartbreaking and heart opening. It breaks the heart wide open. Are you following my argument here? And I'm here to break your hearts wide open. Not to give you no more tricks that you do with your head. You got enough of that. That shit don't work. You got to become wounded in your heart. And I'm here to wound you. And if I fail, remember, I carry a big stick. Are you all beginning to understand? So that's one of the ways of shifting emotions, right? Is by the practice of dhyana, or the sincere recollection of someone whom you have had the experience of tremendous kindness. Someone that's been kind to you. I mean straight up kind to you. You see, the experience of what have come to refer to in the house as loving kindness. And it's always mother-like. You see, it's a derivative of the first process. Because sometimes there's other people in your life that also have been the bestower of this mother-like loving kindness to you. It might have been the form of money when you just were broke and this person just, I don't know, you know what I'm talking about. It's in your memory banks. It's there. It is still stored in the circuits. You know, like the limbic system keeps all of those impressions because it is the source of them all, right? Implicate, right? So even once that phantom leg is gone, you still got that pain, right? Well, it's the same with joy. Once the thing is gone, this joy still remains here, and you can recover. It is an act of charity. So this recovery then of the experience of being the recipient of mother-like loving kindness also will change. Remember, these shifts will wipe out any of the negative emotional conditions because this is positive, right? And it works across the board. Let's talk about a third one. I talked about it a little bit already when I talked about that self-talking. One of the things that you have to learn how to do that in order to shift your emotional condition is to cut through the inner dialogue, cut through the self-talk. That is the basis of the negative emotional state. But that emotional state, that anger must be maintained by your constant feeding it. You must constantly think about how you've been wrong. You see how wrong you've been done. You must feed it great attention. You must lie awake at night just thinking about it. Oh, you must become obsessive about it. Right? It demands such. Otherwise, you can't maintain it. You see my point? And that's why the angry person is a person that is a genius, because somehow they've been able to take their intellect and come up with a way to justify and fuel and feed their anger and rage for 30 years. That's really shit. I mean, that really is, because just think about it. I mean, every day you got to think of a way to renew your rage. Now, anything over time loses its pleasure, right? The sheer genius of the chronic angry person is evident, right? Brilliant. They probably could have found the solution to AIDS or something. Been able to get out of their anger. You see, we lose a lot of good people to AIDS. But you see my point, right? Self-talk with the aid of your intellect, in the service of your ego and all of that, underlies so many of our negative emotional states. Even with greed, I gotta have. Well, I don't have enough. Because, 10 years from now, they won't be selling this thing. So let me get 5,000 over and put them in my face. Because 10 years from now, I don't want to be around here needing this and they don't sell it. You see, greed, the inability to be content. It's a dreadful condition. Dreadful condition. It's the actual inability to be content. It's not a question of getting enough to become content. They actually don't have the ability to be content. This thing won't let them be content. It is always reminding them how this ain't enough. I need more. And if I don't get more, something bad gonna happen. You see, it's a terrifying condition. Yes, dear.
And I want to compare it with the self-talk, since one would be negative and one would be positive. Would it require more energy to make that positive shift to appreciation, gratitude, and kindness? And that early experience, would it be more energy or more effort than the self-talk? And if it does require more energy, is that the reason why people prefer to engage in the self-talk, or is it just lack of knowledge?
Well, it's a little bit of all, but it's mostly the circuitry. They've been wired. You know what I mean? You see, it all comes back to those original neurons and the connections, don't it? They've been doing this all their life. They just didn't start this year.
Okay, but the question is, to make this shift.
Which one required the more energy?
Yes.
The heart. Opening the heart is always going to take energy. That's why every teacher of the heart very honestly confessed to the student of the heart, this is going to take everything of you. You see? This is real work. You know what I mean? This is not, it's not good. That's why I said earlier, sadhana hurts, sadhana difficult, sadhana, yeah. Because you're going against pattern, right? Pattern. So your motivation has to be extraordinary. You see, this work of transformation has to be based on a profound understanding of your condition, of being a slave to your random emotional states, however they come about, whether through somebody insulting you or some internal generation of such, it doesn't matter, you see? But it'll take more energy. Mm-hmm. More bling bling.
Okay.
You know the rule.
When you make this shift, are you changing, and this is kind of side about the frequency of your energy rate, which changes your aura?
All of it.
And that you are a different
You get it.
person when you enter, because, you talked about that.
Yeah.
You come in contact with someone and they just make you feel good, and then that's real
you
stuff.
said,
I've heard
yeah,
that before.
but that's real. Now you understand it. You see the science of it now. You see, so it's been rescued from suspicion on the lips of ancient realizers and seers. Now suddenly it resonates with the same force as quantum mechanics. It's standing on the same ground of respectability as, wave particle relationships and so forth and so on, isn't it? Right? It is becoming respectable now after all these many years. You see? But everything you said is exactly the case. That is exactly what has to happen in that case. And it's worth it, isn't it? Now, let me just finish this up so we can wrap up and let Gateway have their library room here back. I was saying that one of the problems is dealing with your self-talk, how to cut through that, right? So, one of the things, you heard the old expression, whistle while you work? Right. Make some noise, but make a different kind of noise instead of this kind of self-talking noise. In this moment, you see, you can literally whistle away your stress and anger. Sound. The point I'm making is that you have to use sound here. Because sound shifts, doesn't it? Because self-talking is fundamentally made up of words, right? And words are phononyms, right? Phononyms are sound bites, right? And in every alphabet, we got about the same 26 fundamental sound units that make up the alphabet, the language. That's in everyone. Although some language groups use fewer than 26, but they're fundamental. They are wired. You wired to hear the sound that is associated with A, B, C, D. It's wired. When you was in your mother's womb, all of her speech, all that language, circuitry, right? That produces all kinds of subtle responses to it. So what you can do in that moment, you can shift through sound. Now, one of the best way to do is start singing a beautiful song. You got a favorite song? If not, see Monsoon. You see? Start singing inside. You know, some of us can't be singing outside. In fact, I prefer that you sing inside, all right? Because you might start singing and make somebody else mad, right? Sing inside. But start singing. You know, pull up that Smokey song. I mean, some music that is heartbreaking. Heartbreaking. You know what I mean? Music that touches you, a song that takes you there, a song that brings it back. Or if you have the advantage of being wired for poetry, then move into your poetry. You see? If you don't know any poetry, then drink a little bit of Rumi. Have a cup of atah. Or lala. In Kashmir, they say that the language we speak consists of only two words, Allah and Lala. Lala was the naked female poet, you see, that many people depended upon in order to shift their moods. That's why poetry was special in every culture, because having your poem. In fact, a mother finds out in ancient times in Africa, one of the things that a mother would find out is the song for the child. You knew how to hum to your baby. Bring that rate in. You follow what I'm saying? So you have a song somewhere. It might have been the song your mother sung to you. I don't know. But if you can sing, you see, recover something in you that shifts in that very moment. That emotional condition. Because again, it's more powerful. Yes, Paravati?
Talking about the mother and the baby in utero. I remember when I was growing up how the women would talk about other pregnant women and really encourage them, discourage them from doing things to mar the baby. And it sounds like what you're saying, they may not have known anything about this circuitry,
here's the
but
sign.
it's the same thing.
Sure. Here's the sign. So all that ancient wisdom, here come the signs. It's appropriate that a child comes trailing from behind. It's appropriate that a shadow follows the sun. I find nothing inappropriate about it. That signs should follow this great wisdom of the heart. It's natural. It's the most natural thing in the world. So sing, find your song. And in that moment, you change the dialogue. You see, change the dialogue. The words running through your mind that makes up your inner dialogue is all negative. Change it. You see? This has been called the use of a mantra. This singing of a song. Changing the pattern of language, of your inner language. This is the science behind mantra. I can go into a lot more, but you all get the point. Those of you in the house get the point. And that's the whole point. Huh? Okay. The rest of you who want the point, see some of them. So you can do that. Now remember, all of these spiritual and now non-spiritual processes work. And it's a matter of training, developing, practicing the curricula of the heart. You see? Now, lastly, well, we don't have enough time, so I'm going to cut it off here because that takes us too far. So, in summary, we now see that this business about emotional self-management and development is very solid, very tangible, very concrete, a very real process. And this becomes a sadhana. And the more you can stay in this sadhana, the more rapidly you are able to rewire the basic circuitry that is running your behavior and thus your life and living. Make sense to you? Now, I was wired to be out of here at 1:30. You all changed my wiring somehow. Any last questions? Anything, comments from anyone? Yes, on the side?
Very learning experience for me, and I hope you'll do a part 2 one day. So.
Oh, I don't know.
Come to the marriage.
One day. When will this video be available? Right.
This is where the circus burned out. Sing a song. Sing a song. So, folks, what you do really, hopefully, you go home and really think about it. Let it sink deep within yourself, and understand that you don't have to feel negative. You weren't wired to be trapped in dukkha at all. That's not your natural condition. That's not your state. That is not a reflection of your possibility. Evolution did not intend for you to be brokenhearted. Just the opposite. You follow me? You were wired for bliss. You follow me? Wired for it. You simply must do the work. You must do the sadhana and be transformed. So this is what all of the realizers, whether spiritual or scientific, have confessed. All right, with that, this is enough for today.
I was serious. When will this be ready?
thought as a follow-up to yesterday's workshop that we will use this occasion to continue the heart opening process. I could not think of a better tool to use for the opening of the heart than some of the poetry of Rumi. So, along with our quietude today, there will be an occasion to sip a little Rumi. Most of you in here know something about Rumi, but just in case there is someone who has not heard about him in these past 700 years, something should be said. The relationship that Rumi had with his friend. A friend is a higher status than a guru. The spiritual friend that Rumi sings about in his madness of love is none other than Shams al-Din Tabrizi, affectionately known as Shams Tabrizi. The two great souls met in Turkey in 1244 AD. And the meeting was a result in the answering of each of their prayers. Shams Tabriz had prayed all his life that God would send him a friend who could handle the vastness and the weight of his company. He had scoured the land in search of such a friend, and had all those years not been able to find him. So in desperation, he pleaded with Allah that he should send him this friend, so that he would not die and nobody ever know or taste what he had accomplished. And the myth goes that the Lord told Shams that I'll give you such a friend, but what price would you be willing to pay? And Shams said, I will give my head and my life for such a friend. And so by spirit he was directed to Konya in Turkey, where he found Maulana Jalaluddin of Balkhi, affectionately known as Rumi. While there's so much that can be said about that meeting, suffice it to say that when the two great elephants met, Shams immediately engaged Rumi and Sobet in great considerations, because Rumi was himself a renowned scholar and teacher in his own right. Rumi had 10,000 students. He was a great Sufi, even before he encountered Shams. And so Shams engaged the great scholar, mystic. He was not yet a poet. He was still in his head. He engaged the great Rumi and Sobet into a profound conversation about Allah. And the questions he gave Rumi to consider was so deep, so profound, that Rumi simply fainted on the spot. Slowly and eventually he recovered his senses. And by that time, Shams had already disappeared. And then when asked by his students who was watching from afar, what happened, Master? And Maulana, with tears in his eyes, looked at his community and confessed it to them that everything that I have been telling you about Allah, I have seen today in a human being. And from that moment forward, Rumi pursued Shams. And when he found him again, they embraced in a kind of profound embracement that is still lingering today. Rumi poetry still brings lovers together, even after all these centuries. Eventually, the learning community that had grown around the Rumi became very jealous of Shams. It seems that the great master had forsaken them, and indeed he had, because what kind of choice is it between head and heart? There's no choice. It's a no-brainer. So one of Rumi's sons conspired with other members of the learning community to take care of their problem of the absent master. And they hatched a plan, a scheme, and they killed Shams. And it was in this moment, upon the death of Shams Tabriz, and the breaking of the physical ability for the lovers to meet, that gave birth to the Rumi and the incredible poetry that he produced. Rumi, afterwards, during his period of mourning, would just be overcome, and one day he fell up against a pillar, and he just began to turn around that pillar in his agony. And the poetry that has become the Divan Shams Tabriz in the Masnavi was born out of that turning. Hence, even today, the whirling dervishes continue to turn around Shams. Rumi assembled a great funeral procession to bury the memory of his beloved, leading an assembly of thousands playing his flute, expounding profound poetry falling from his mouth. It is to our great good fortune that Hans Undine, who was a student also of Shams Tabriz, was there to captured those words and wrote this beautiful poetry. But upon entering into the burial arena, Rumi caught himself, and he realized in that moment that Charles Tabriz could never die, because he himself had become Charles. And so this is what is the context of the great poetry. So sometimes when you know the history of the brokenhearted, it makes it easier to sympathize with them. So today, beloved, sitting quietly here, let us sip a little wine and see if we can find that same place that lovers find. Put it in. Just turn down the lights after she gets loaded up. Are you loaded? Not too low so she can see she's old. All right, has it loaded? All right, just wait a minute and let's quiet the room before you start to play. Before you start to play. Turn the lights up. Leave them up. Turn the poetry up.
In my hallucination,
And I started it.
I saw my beloved's flower garden. In my vertigo,
That's not the beginning.
My heart is burnt.
One more
My
time.
heart is.
This is too complicated. You're not used to wine, I see. That is the beginning.
That was the beginning.
Just eject it, beloved, and put you back in. If this is too complicated. All right. Play. Already these people are drunk. Everybody's gonna be in. That's what it's. Turn it up a little bit. Sounds like
My heart is burning with love. All can see this flame. My heart is pulsing with passion, like waves on an ocean. My friends have become strangers, and I'm surrounded by enemies. But I'm free as the wind, no longer hurt by those who reproach me. I'm at home, wherever I am, and in the room of lovers, I can see with closed eyes the beauty that dances. Behind the veils, intoxicated with love, I too dance the rhythm of this moving world. I have lost my senses in my world of lovers.
In my vertigo, in my dizziness, in my drunken haze, whirling and dancing like a spinning wheel. I saw myself as the source of existence. I was there in the beginning, and I was the spirit of love. Now I am sober. There is only the hangover and the memory of love, and only the sorrow. I yearn for happiness. I ask for help. I want mercy. And my love says, look at me and hear me, because I am here just for that. I am your moon, and your moonlight too. I am your flower garden, and your water too. I have come all this way, eager for you, without shoes or shawl. I want you to laugh, to kill all your worries, to love you, to nourish you. Oh, sweet bitterness, I will soothe you and heal you. I will bring you roses. I too have been covered with thorns.
Because of your love, I have lost my sobriety. I am intoxicated by the madness of love. In this fog, I have become a stranger to myself. I'm so drunk, I've lost the way to my house. In the garden, I see only your face. From trees and blossoms, I inhale only your fragrance. Drunk with the ecstasy of love, I can no longer tell the difference between drunkard and drink, between lover and beloved. A lover knows only humility. He has no choice. He steals into your alley at night. He has no choice. He longs to kiss every lock of your hair. Don't fret. He has no choice. In his frenzied love for you, he longs to break the chains of his imprisonment. He has no choice.
The lover asks
your lover. Come to my side. I will open the gate to your love. Come settle with me. Let us be neighbors to the stars. You have been hiding so long, aimlessly drifting in the sea of my love. Even so, you have always been connected to me, concealed, revealed, in the known, in the unmanifest. I am life itself. You have been a prisoner of a little pond. I am the ocean and its turbulent flood. Come merge with me. Leave this world of ignorance. Be with me. I will open the gate to your love. I desire you more than food or drink. My body, my senses, my mind hunger for your taste. I can sense your presence in my heart. Although you belong to all the world, I wait with silent passion for one gesture, one glance from you. You come to us from another world, from beyond the stars and the void of space, transcendent, pure, of unimaginable beauty, bringing with you the essence of love. You transform all who are touched by you. Mundane concerns, troubles, and sorrows dissolve in your presence, bringing joy to ruler and ruled, peasant and king. You bewilder us with your grace. All evils transform into goodness. You are the master alchemist. You light the fire of love in earth and sky, in heart and soul of every being. Through your loving, existence and non-existence merge. All opposites unite. All that is profane becomes sacred again. gave me 3 kisses so that I would wake up to this moment of love. I tried to remember in my heart what I dreamt about during the night before I became aware of this morning of life. I found my dream, but the moon took me away. It lifted me up to the firmament and suspended me there. I saw how my heart had fallen on your path, singing a song. Between my love and my heart, things were happening which slowly made me recall everything. You aroused me with your touch, although I can't see your hands. You have kissed me with tenderness, although I haven't seen your lips. You are hidden from me, but it is you who keeps me alive. Perhaps the time will come when you will tire of kisses. I shall be happy even for insults from you. I only ask that you keep some attention on me.
Because the idol is your face, I have become an idolater. Because the wine is from your cup, I have become a drunkard. In the existence of your love, I have become non-existent. This non-existence, linked to you, is better than all existence.
Is it your face that adorns this garden? Is it your fragrance that intoxicates this garden? Is it your spirit that has made this brook a river of wine? Hundreds have looked for you and died searching in this garden where you hide behind the scenes. But this pain is not for those who come as lovers. You are easy to find here. You are in the breeze and in this river of wine.
From the beginning of my life, I have been looking for your face. But today, I have seen it. Today I've seen the charm, the beauty, the unfathomable grace of the face that I was looking for. Today I have found you. And those who laughed and scorned me yesterday are sorry that they were not looking as I did. I am bewildered by the magnificence of your beauty and wish to see you with 100 eyes. My heart has burned with passion and has searched forever for this wondrous beauty that I now behold. I am ashamed to call this love human, and afraid of God to call it divine. Your fragrant breath, like the morning breeze, has come to the stillness of the garden. You have breathed new life into me. I have become your sunshine and also your shadow. My soul is screaming in ecstasy. Every fiber of my being is in love with you. Your effulgence has lit a fire in my heart, and you have made radiant for me the earth and sky. My arrow of love has arrived at the target. I am in the house of mercy, and my heart is a place of prayer.
Both light and shadow are the dance of love. Love has no cause. It is the astrolabe of God's secrets. Lover and loving are inseparable and timeless. Although I may try to describe love, when I experience it, I am speechless. Although I may try to write about love, I am rendered helpless. My pen breaks, and the paper slips away at the ineffable place where lover, loving and loved are one. Every moment is made glorious by the light of love.
O God, let all lovers be content. Give them happy endings. Let their lives be celebrations. Let their hearts dance in the fire of your love. My sweetheart, you have aroused my passion. Your touch has filled me with desire. I am no longer separate from you. These are precious moments. I beseech you, don't let me wait. Let me merge with you.
Die in this love, your soul will be renewed. Die, die. Don't fear the death of that which is known. If you die to the temporal, you will become timeless. Die, die. Cut off those chains that hold you prisoner to the world of attachment. Die, die, die to the deathless, and you will be eternal. Die, die, come out of this cloud. When you leave the cloud, effulgent moon. Die, die, die to the din and the noise of mundane concern. In the silence of love,